Hello, and good afternoon to everyone attending today's webinar, JLG Elementary Book Talks. I'm Joel Franklin, and I will be introducing today's webinar. But before we go further, I have a few housekeeping items. Be sure to turn off pop-up blockers in your browser, as these may cause problems when viewing the webinar. If you're experiencing technical problems, please use the Help button on the audience console, and the webinar tech team will get to you as soon as possible. To make your slides larger, resize the Slides box at any time by dragging the lower right corner. To minimize a window, either click on its icon in the bottom menu dock or click the blue Minimize button. If your screen becomes locked, try using F5 to refresh the webinar console. If you're on a Mac, use Command R. A certificate for continuing education credit is available in the certification folder. It is labeled Certificate, and the file can be saved onto your computer or printed out by clicking the appropriate icon. It will also be available in the archived presentation. You'll receive an email regarding that. If you have any questions or comments, send those in at any time via the red Q&A box. Make sure you click the red icon to open the Q&A box. If we don't get to your questions on the air today, we will get back to you in the next week or so via email with an answer. Please join the conversation on Twitter. Tweet us at JR Library Guild and use the hashtag JLGWebinars. Today, our resident experts, Leslie Bermel and Deborah Ford, will give us a fast-paced overview on the latest and greatest books arriving in your mailbox this fall. So, grab your wish list and let's listen to them talk about their favorite new elementary titles.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
With more than 24 categories for elementary, 30 books in less than 30 minutes is quite the task. So we should just jump right on in there, right?
I think we should start right now.
Right now, this second.
Right now.
So one of my favorite new books coming out this fall is Francine Poulet Meets the Ghost Raccoon. I mean, how can you not pick that up? Plus, you see the author is our dearly beloved Kate.
Kate.
It begins like this. Francine Poulet was an animal control officer. She hailed from a long line of animal control officers. Francine's father, Clement Poulet, had been an animal control officer, and Francine's grandmother, Nanette Poulet, had been an animal control officer too. Everyone who called the Animal Control Center was being tormented in one way or another. Francine was never surprised to hear about it. She also was never, ever afraid. Yes, so in our series. Another book in under series, this is a new series. It's called A Whole New Ballgame. It's in our sports category, and it's got diverse characters. It's about two boys, Rip and Red. They're best friends. They're in the 5th grade, and when they think, oh, we know exactly what's going to happen in 5th grade because it's what always happens when they get there, everything is different. From basketball to their teacher, they have to change classes. And I love it because it's sports, it's diverse. I love the teacher, and I love the chapters are short. So you feel like you really got something accomplished really quickly because suddenly, boom, you've read for a few minutes and you've already read a bunch of chapters.
It's always nice when we can love the teacher.
Yes, it is a wonderful thing. And Shiloh. Oh, we love Shiloh. Can you believe that 1991 was the first Shiloh?
Wow.
It was her 65th book.
Crazy.
65th book, wins the Newbery, and now, in 2015, the 4th Shiloh book comes out.
Shiloh gets to celebrate Christmas.
It's a Shiloh Christmas, yes. And there's a new preacher, and the bad guy is not so bad, but sometimes it's hard to change what people think about you. And so Marty has a new challenge in a Shiloh Christmas.
Well, Shiloh could have been part of this category, too. We're going to talk about a few animal books now, and one that is so very special is this book called Firefly Hollow by Allison McGee. I love this little book with everything in me. Hey, Deb, do you remember your dreams?
Sometimes.
I do, too. And sometimes, dreams are kind of fleeting, and sometimes it's hard to get there. So Firefly in this book is dreaming of flying and touching the moon. And her friend Cricket loves baseball so much that he wants to become a catcher. I beg your pardon. When these two little creatures are leaving the safety of home and they're in search of their dreams, they run into the thing their parents have warned them about the most, and that's a giant. But this giant is just a little giant. He may turn into a big giant. His name's Peter, and he has dreams of his own. So we're going to join these dreamers as they support each other and they achieve the thing they all want the most. The book has beautiful full-color illustrations along with some beautiful black and white drawings that provide a beautiful visual support for the story. Tree of Wonder, The Many Marvelous Lives of a Rainforest Tree by Kate Mesner. This book is so cute, and it's about one almond olive tree that sustains the lives of more than 1,000 different living things. It's home to many that find shelter in its limbs. It's the bearer of abundant fruit that feeds all kinds of animals such as howler monkeys, macaws, and fruit bats. Included in the back of this book are further details about the almond tree, the conservation efforts, and a fun exercise on rainforest math. This book has great resources in it for curious readers.
And a third book that we chose about animals is The Parakeet Named Dreidel. And it's based on a story about the 8th night of Hanukkah when they look outside and there on the snow-covered windowsill is a parakeet. Well, that's not a good place for him. So they open the window, they let them in, he flies around, and they think, oh, we've got a great pet. But then they think, oh, no, he must belong to somebody. So they put out an ad, and nobody says anything. And
nobody wants him?
Nobody claims him. But then a very unusual thing happens 9 years later.
What?
Yes, if you want to know, you have to read the story.
That's just a tease. So, the next book that we're going to talk about is a book by Patricia Polacco.
Yay!
I know. And, I went out online and I said, oh my gosh, she's done it to me again. She's made me cry. This is a Kleenex-worthy book. It's called Tucky Joe and Little Heart, and it is based on real events, as told to Patricia Polacco. And the story is that Tucky Joe was a young man who volunteered to become a soldier during World War II when he was just 15. I don't even know how that's possible, but he was recruited and sent to the Pacific where, as he's out on a recon mission, he sees a little girl named, he nicknames her Little Heart. Well, the two of them become fast friends, even though she doesn't speak English. They share the act of kindness with each other, and so they talk through their differences with the English language and end up becoming fast friends. The story after the war ends is that Tucky Joe comes back to the United States and Little Heart and he are separated for decades. Their story comes back together again towards the end of Tucky Joe's life, and Little Heart has an act of kindness for Tucky Joe that just might save his life. The next book is called Lenny and Lucy by the Caldecott-winning duo of Philip and Aaron Stead. This married couple do amazing things together. And this is the story of a boy named Peter who is moving out of a city environment and out into the country, and you have to cross a bridge to get to his house. And the woods are on one side and his house is on the other, and he's scared to death of the dark. Deb, are you scared of the dark?
I could not.
I
don't want to tell you. I don't want to tell you about my butterfly nightlight. Thank you very much.
Oh, a butterfly nightlight. Well, Peter ends up building himself a protector in the form of Lenny, who is built with pillows and blankets and everything he could find, and he takes Lenny out to the end of the bridge and he perches him there so that he can protect the house from the dark of the forest. And when Peter is looking out of his bedroom window at night with a flashlight, looking at Lenny to make sure that Lenny is taking care of business, he realizes that Lenny is out there all by himself. Poor Lenny. So the next day he builds Lucy. It's a fun story. Next is Leo, a ghost story by Mac Barnett with illustrations by Christian Robinson.
Oh, for those of you who are writing like maniacs to write down the titles, as soon as this is over, they'll all be posted on our website.
That's a great thing.
So relax and just enjoy.
Yeah. Let's talk about ghosts for a second. You know, I know you're scared of the dark with your butterfly lamp even, but what about ghosts? You know, ghosts are a funny thing. Kids sometimes think that children ghosts are pretty much okay, but adult ghosts are pretty much mean. But Leo is a pretty nice ghost, and when the family that inhabits his house decides that they don't like ghosts, Leo says, fine, I'll leave. So he leaves, and he decides he wants to become a roaming ghost instead. And then he meets a little girl by the name of Jane, and she can see him. And they become very good friends. But Jane thinks that Leo is an imaginary and not a ghost. And Leo doesn't want to correct her, of course, because then he's scared that she'll be scared of him. So they just go on as imaginary friends until a time when it sometimes might be good to be a ghost because it has its advantages.
And sometimes there are advantages of being a real life person.
Sometimes there are.
Sometimes there are. And so I want to tell you about a series called Women Who Broke the Rules. It's written by the genius herself, Kathleen Kroll, who is the nosy neighbor. And if anybody can dig up a great story about a person, it's Kathleen. And so Mary Todd Lincoln tells the story of the 16th president's wife. She was very influential in the things that he did. She was quite the character and very progressive for her time and considered herself a pretty smart character. Another book that's coming in that same series this late winter is Coretta Scott King. Did you know she can sing?
I did not.
She wanted to be the next Marian Anderson. That's right. She was apparently very, very good. And so not only was she an important leader, she also had a talent of her own. And even after the heartbreak of losing Martin Luther King, she kept on marching. Great, great series about women. Speaking of women, Toni Buzzio, who is a former classroom teacher and librarian, now writing full-time, lives in Maine. She has a new book called A Passion for Elephants, and it's a story of field scientist Cynthia Moss, who started writing for Newsweek when her friend sent her letters from Africa about all the things she was seeing. Well, she didn't have any family, really, to speak of but her sister, so she decided, well, I'll just go to Africa and see for myself. The next thing you know, she's got a job to take photographs of all 400 elephants.
Wow.
Yes. And the more she took them, the more she realized that they're all different. And she got really interested in saving the elephants and developing her passion for them and trying to save them from the poachers and all of those kinds of things. Another book about people comes in our new category. Yay for the arts. Swan, The Life and Dance of Anna Pavlova. And you know what? Sometimes we look at the experts in whatever field it is, and we think, you know, they just were born to do this. And maybe they were, and maybe they weren't. But they told Anna that she wasn't good enough. She was too little. She was too frail. She was the daughter of a laundress. She wasn't from some rich, affluent family, but she had a dream, and she didn't give up. And then I love how in this story that Laurel Snyder tells, she wants to share her music and her dancing with even people who can't afford to pay. And so she traveled and danced for those people.
You know what I love about that book, too, is that if you can partner it with a story about Misty Copeland and the fact that she overcame all of the doubters to become the first prima ballerina as an African-American woman. I love those two stories.
Which is a perfect segue into diversity.
Diversity. And this book called Freedom in Congo Square is absolutely amazing. This was a story that I did not know anything at all about, and it's set during the Civil War, prior to the Civil War, with slaves in New Orleans. They were given only one afternoon, that would be Sunday, off from their labors because it was part of the law in New Orleans at that time. So on Sunday afternoon, They all gathered in Congo Square, where they were able to play and sing and dance to African music. Congo Square became the communication hub for all the black residents of New Orleans, whether they were enslaved or free. And even today, Congo Square is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The author, Carol Boston Weatherford, also included a glossary of terms, and an author's note are both included in this book. And speaking of diversity, and boy, plucked right out of the headlines, because of the renewed relations with Cuba, this book is coming at probably the most perfect time. Island Treasures, Growing Up in Cuba by Alma Flor Ada is a memoir of her experiences growing up in an unconventional way during her childhood in Cuba. This book does include previously published short stories and short story collections, but it also includes new stories. There is a glossary included with phrases and expressions from Spanish to English. If kids want to get a glimpse of what it's like to grow up in Cuba, this is a great book for them. And The Book Itch, Freedom, Truth, and Harlem's Greatest Bookstore by Vonda Michaud Nelson. This is with illustrations provided by R. Gregory Christie. Lewis had an itch, a book itch, so he opened his own kind of bookstore to scratch that itch. I get a book itch every once in a while, probably a little more often than I should. In the 1930s, Louis Michaud opened Harlem's National Memorial African Bookstore. But this place was not just a store that would sell books. This was a store where people would come to visit, and they would exchange ideas and swap learning from each other. People from all over the country would come to this bookstore. And this is actually Vonda's great uncle's bookstore, and she has some memories of being there before it closed. So there is a biography of Louis Michaud, an author's note, and a bibliography included. Oh, I love this book.
I love this book too. I love books that make me laugh, because sometimes we read books that are so serious, I just want to put my head on the table and just sob, you know. So I saw this. If you ever want to bring an alligator to school, don't do it. Don't do it. It's by debut author and illustrator Elise Parsley. If your teacher tells you to bring something from nature for show and tell, she means a hollow stick or a bird's nest or some sparkly rocks. She does not want you to bring an alligator. For example, during math, you'll notice the alligator is hungry. You'll give the alligator 3 pieces of your favorite gum and beg him not to eat any one, and for Pete's sake, to wait for show and tell.
I loved it
I love it. It made me laugh. Another book that made me really laugh is written and illustrated by Carter Goodrich, We Forgot Brock. And Carter Goodrich is the chief designer for Despicable Me and
Minions.
Yes, the Minions, and Ratatouille and Brave.
Wow.
But he's also a picture book writer. And it's an imaginary friends, in addition to lots of square books this season, are very popular. And it's a story about a little boy who has an imaginary friend named Brock, who it looks like a tough pirate kind of dude. He rides a chopper, he does sword fighting, they do all kinds of goofing around things together. And until one day they go to the fair, and in the midst of being at the fair, Philip falls asleep, and he gets home. And as soon as he gets home, he wakes up. We forgot Brock!
Brock's still at the fair.
Brock was at the fair, and so Brock was sad. Brock was missing his friend. But in the meantime, he finds another imaginary friend to
pass the time.
And so it's laugh out loud funny. Your kids will love that during story time. For your older kids who are looking for a chapter book that makes them laugh out loud, The Terrible Two are back. And in this case, they are worse than ever, except that what they like to do is pranks. And now that they have a new principal, they're finding it hard to get anything done. They can't get anything by the new principal, and so they really have to go way on a limb, use an unorthodox kind of method, and the terrible two become three.
Well, you know what? The authors of that book might be two that could write about that as experts because they're pranksters.
Yes, they are.
So coming in chapter books in our fall and winter season is a great book called Book Scavenger. By the way, there are tons of activities out on the internet about creating a book scavenger event in your library. But this book starts as a creator of a book scavenger, an online game, is attacked, and he finds himself in the hospital, and he's trapped in a coma. And Emily and her new friend James have found this strange book that they think might be the start of a new game that the creator of this book scavenger online game created. And so they're off to race and solve puzzles that will lead them to a valuable prize, and they're hoping to do all that before they become the next target of the attacker. So if your kids are loving on puzzle type books, these are kind of reminiscent of Blue Balliet's books. The first one I think was called The Right Three. And
yeah.
And there have been a couple other ones.
Yeah, Pieces and Players and Pieces was just in the spring.
And there was one in the middle.
And one in the middle.
We have forgotten what the name of that one is. But if they love those, they'll love Book Scavenger. The next book in our chapter series of books is called The Doldrums by Nicholas Gannon. This is the story of a boy who lives in a house that is filled with all kinds of crazy things that his grandparents have collected over the years. His grandparents go missing while they're on an iceberg. Doesn't that sound crazy?
Well,
kind of crazy. And what's even more crazy is his mother will not let him out of her sight now because she's scared that he'll go missing too. But he's got some great friends, and they hatch this plan to get out of the house, get out of the town, and go and find their own adventures. Unfortunately, that plan, even though it was made really, really well, doesn't quite go according to plan.
Oh, Ling and Ting. That's me. Me, Ling and Ting. Okay, so Ling and Ting is a great series for your beginning readers, and there's a new one coming out together in all weather. And so for kids who have been following their adventures, actually you could really pick these up and read them in any order, which is one of the things I like about some of these, especially early reader.
You mean they're standalone?
They stand alone. So do not worry if you don't have the next one. You can always back order.
There you go. So favorite covers. This book called Float is a wordless book, and I happen to be a lover of wordless books, which is probably why I'm talking about this one. But you know, a lot of kids, when they see it raining outside, they just kind of, what am I going to do with myself? And they bug you to no end, trying to figure out something to do. But in this book, a little boy sees that it's raining, and he's super excited. He throws on his galoshes and his raincoat and his rain hat, and he runs outside with his paper boat. And he puts his paper boat in a little river down by the curb, and his adventure begins. By the way, folks, if you've never, ever folded your own paper boat, you can, because the end pages serve as directions on how to fold paper into a paper boat.
Cool.
I loved it. Waiting by Kevin Hankes. Holy mackerel, this book is so cute. And it's about 5 toys that sit and wait on a windowsill. And they're all waiting for something specific. One might be waiting for the rain, one's waiting for the wind, and one's waiting for snow. And then a toy joins them that doesn't appear to be waiting for anything at all. Or is she? By the way, y'all, there is a contest that's being hosted by Green Willow that if you create your own windowsill with things waiting, and you turn your project into Simon & Schuster, I think it is Green Willow is an imprint of Simon, no, maybe HarperCollins, sorry, I'm so sorry. But anyway, you might be able to win a visit from Kevin Hankes.
I'll look it up and post it in a blog.
There we go.
It'll be a post-presentation post, which is what we do when we forget. Or running out of time.
Yeah.
So Zen Socks. Zen Socks, a new book in John Muth's series, Zen Stories. And so these are, of course, stories that you can read on more than one level. Just because it's a picture book, don't think, oh, I can only share this with my babies, because this could go over your baby's head. But it's great to use with your older kids too. So we learn patience in this story.
Aww.
And we learn
patience is good.
Patience is very good. Patience is very good. And so they're Zen-like. They tell a story within a story, and of course it's just gorgeous, just gorgeous. Nonfiction. I stopped a dinner party with this book.
Did you really?
I absolutely did. Right in the middle of whatever, I don't even know what we were talking about, I suddenly said, hey, there's mosquitoes. Did you know that if you take a millipede and you put it in your mouth and you chew it up, it's disgusting, it's kind of poisonous, but it mixes with your saliva, and then you take that out and you put it in your hand, and then you rub it all over, and the mosquitoes won't bite you.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon.
But this great new nonfiction book, How to Swallow a Pig and Other Step-by-Step Directions of Animals by husband and wife team Steve Jenkins and Robin Page, will give you plenty to talk about, whether you're at a dinner party or you're doing a story time.
I think best not to serve that at dinner. So I love this book. It is called Poet, The Remarkable Story of George Moses Horton, and it's written, and it's a debut illustration by Don Tate. This is his very first fully illustrated book, which I'm so excited for him. George Moses was enslaved, and he dreamed of being able to read and write, even though it was illegal, against the law. But he taught himself. He would linger nearby when the white children were getting their lessons, and he would pick things up. And his mother gave him her most prized possession, which was a hymnal. And he learned how to read and write on his own. But the thing about this is that he became the very first African American in the South to be published. He is a beautiful poet. Also coming in nonfiction is The Great Monkey Rescue, Saving the Golden Lion Tamarins. This is by Sandra Markle. Golden lion tamarins live in Brazil's Atlantic forest. This is their story of survival because they were virtually extinct through the loss of habitat. Scientists have studied them in captivity in zoos across the country, and they've restored the golden tamarin in the forest of Brazil. And this is the story about their amazing comeback with the help of scientists. I love this book, and golden tamarins are so small. They only mature adults only weigh about 2 pounds, which I think is kind of interesting. But this is their story.
And on the whole other side, we have...
Let's go to fantasy.
Fantasy.
Yeah. This book, called The Sign of the Cat, this is adventure on the high seas. Deborah, I know you like to speak like a parrot, or pirate, not a parrot. You could do a parrot, probably.
I do like to talk like a pirate.
Not a parrot, but a pirate. So this is the story of Duncan, who is a smart kid, but his mother is insisting that he just be average and just get mediocre grades. So she encourages him not to become the special guy that he really is. But he's got a special talent that is kept hidden and secret, and that is that he can talk to cats. Wouldn't you love to be able to talk to cats and know what they're thinking?
I absolutely would, and I would tell mine to let me sleep at night.
Yeah. Emerson needs to do that. But Duncan wants more. He disobeys his mother's wishes, which some kids do, and gets a perfect test score. Now people are beginning to take notice of Duncan, and some of them don't have the very best of intentions.
Ooh.
Uh-huh.
Speaking of not very good intentions, Lily is only 3 inches tall, and she and her sister and brother are on the beach. Lily is wearing her iron shoes so that the crabs don't pinch her little toes off, when all of a sudden the tales that she's heard her granny say her whole life come true. A giant of a man comes up out of the ocean. Everything goes darker, as if the clouds had unraveled from the sky. Lily was sitting in his shadow. It was huge. It stretched out in front of her. Somewhere ahead, Belen and Bree were screaming, "Run, Lily! Run, run, run!" She didn't even take a step. The giant was too quick. He scooped her up into his palm, rough and lined.
Was his name Gulliver?
His name was Gulliver. And yes, they will love, love, love this story. And our last fantasy book we're going to talk about today is by our own Newbery-winning author, Catherine Applegate, Crenshaw.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks just adorable on the front, but I'll tell you what, it's Catherine Applegate. It's deeper than your normal imaginary friend because, bless his heart, this little boy his family has troubles. And he's very practical. And so when it seems like his family is about to be homeless again, it's his invisible friend, Crenshaw, a 7-foot-tall cat, who helps him.
That's a big cat.
It is a big cat. Helps him to find his way.
Good.
And make sense of his world. And last but not least, 3 just adorable little books. Okay, so, and these two, we have to talk about them, even though we're running out of time. So, Finding Winnie. So, this is the second book about Winnie the Pooh, which, of course, we all love Winnie the Pooh, and we love Milne's stories. But this one is written by the great-granddaughter of the man who originally bought the bear.
Oh, the soldier.
The soldier who bought the bear for $20 at a train station in Winnipeg, which is where Winnie comes from.
Which was a small fortune back then.
Yes, it was a small fortune back then. And so it's a great story, narrative nonfiction, in fact, that our readers will love, love, love. And my leaf book. Oh, I had to show this one. The colors are gorgeous, and it feels like fall today here in Columbus. And it talks about all kinds of leaves and finding them. It makes you want to go out and just press leaves and learn more about the trees that are around you. And last but not least, one more.
Oh, yeah. We got to talk about this one.
The crayons are back. The crayons are back. Yay! The day the crayons came home. And in the day the crayons came home, one day a big old pile of postcards show up, and they're all written by the crayons. Hi, Duncan, it's me, Neon Red Crayon. Remember the great vacation we had with your family? Remember how we laughed when we drew a picture of your dad's sunburn? Remember dropping me by the hotel pool when you left? Clearly you do not, because I am still here. I love that. How could you miss me? Anyway, after 9 months waiting for you to come get me, I guess I'm walking back. Your left behind friend, Neon Red Crayon.
I absolutely love Turquoise's story because Turquoise got left in a pants pocket and he went into the dryer and now he's got a sock stuck to his head.
Adorable. Just adorable. So many stories and so many more to come. Just remember that after today's conclusion, you'll see a blog post which has links to all the books we talked about and the categories. So whether you get them or not, it's not too late to get them now. So you want to go ahead and get some of those books.
So this has been some of our favorite upcoming titles.
Well, so far. I've still got a big pile to read. So I think that's all we got time to talk about.
Darn it.
We want to thank Leslie and Deb for their enthusiastic sharing. Thanks, Leslie and Deb. We also want to thank you, our participants, for joining us today. I know you found many books you can't wait to read and share. Also, mark your calendars for September 15th at 3 o'clock Eastern. Our next free webinar features new books for middle and high school readers. Check your email for registration information. And if you want to know more about JLG and its services, contact your account rep or send an email to sales@juniorlibraryguild.com. Remember, you'll receive an automatic email regarding today's webinar, and if you follow the link, you can watch the archived webinar and print your certificate of attendance.
Oh, wait, Team Books. You have to make sure you tell me what we're doing. That's
Circus
fast.
Mirandus. I got to talk about Circus Mirandus.
The Marvels.
Oh, how about The Hired Girl?
Oh, I love that. Lost in the Sun.
Orbiting Jupiter.
This could go on for a while. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on September 15th.
We'll be back.